are still heating up. Lots of meetings going on, but the big one has already happened. Before I take a break, let me take a quick perspective. In Shrikant Kondapalli joining us in the broadcast, Professor Aman Agarwal in the studio with me. Professor Kondapalli, good to have you. And for people watching this conversation, right person who understands it better than all of us. Please explain, Professor Kondapalli, what is going on in the context, and more importantly, from the very brief opening statements that you heard, which were obviously decided that they would be in camera and would be put out into the public domain. What is that indicating to you? What's actually going on?
Thank you, Rishabh, for having me on the show. In the context of the Prime Minister's visit to Tianjin, two things stand out. One is the meeting as such is for the multilateral grouping, the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The second is, of course, the bilateral, which we have for the past 5.5 years. There has been some kind of a stalemate, and this has been, they're trying to clear up since October last year. And recently, the Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit should be seen in that context. So two things, so multilateral and the bilateral. At the multilateral, we will see a lot of statements regarding multipolarity in the context of the tariffs that the US President Trump had announced. And secondly, the energy security, which is also part of this whole US administration's stance on India, as well as the sanctions on Russia, and also the upcoming trade talks between China and the United States. So energy security issues will be discussed in this. SEO has an energy block. SEO has energy producers and energy consumers on a large scale. China, the largest, India, the fourth largest. So there will be discussions related to the energy security as well. The third is in terms of counterterrorism. And here we have some issues with China in the background of the April 22nd Pahalgam attack, as well as the Chinese support to Pakistan in this context, in the 1267 Committee of the United Nations Security Council, as well as the direct cooperation between China and Pakistan in this regard. Remember, the Chinese have not been able to really help in counterterrorism aspects by siding with Pakistan-based terrorists. So that would be a third issue, which is kind of sticking point between India and China. The fourth, of course, is the economic and other investments, markets, and so on. However, on the last, the SEO is not known for the biggest market as such. It is the United States, it is European Union, which are the biggest markets, okay. Japan, Korea. So this will be the multilateral.
Okay. All right. So let me just hold you there. I want to pick your brain for one more thing. So, like I said, obviously, we are not going away from this that, oh, we now perfectly trust the Chinese and let's pull out all our mountain divisions, okay? But we've learned in the past few or relearned in the past few weeks that you absolutely cannot trust anything the Trump administration is saying, because no matter what you think might be happening, it can be upturned in a couple of hours. Suddenly peace deals can happen, Nobel Prizes can be won, anything is possible. So we have to trust ourselves, and we have to, as I mentioned, trust a confluence of interest. Is there a confluence of interest somewhere between India and China, which might last a few weeks or a few months, where we say, okay, it is neither in your interest or my interest to have a breach of the peace on the border. It is in your interest and my interest to make our trade a lot easier, because right now, while it is happening and it is happening rapidly, it's increasing, nothing seems to stop it. But from plane tickets to visas, tourist visas, FDI, everything has been made complicated. So we seem to be easing up on that. Is there a confluence of interest you see?
A very interesting thing that has happened recently is that we have not pulled back the troops except for the disengagement for a few kilometers, and also in terms of patrolling and grazing. We have not done the de-escalation and de-induction process. which is crucial for the CBMs. And during Wang Yi's visit, we announced the core commander level meetings, both in the Western sector, which is now being conducted, but also in the middle and the Eastern sector. But what is interesting is we have not pulled back the troops and equipment on the border, both sides. So this indicates to the limitation in the bilateral relations, because that is very crucial. And because of the Galwan incident, we are a little bit concerned about the situation, and no major development has happened on the border. So that indicates that this will be a sticking point. Visas, FDI, etc. There is some relaxation in what Dr. Jaishankar mentioned on June 17, 2020 on the FDI, the Confucius Institutes, the apps ban announced at that point of time, 2 days after the Galwan incident. So those are being relaxed in a way, but not the core aspects of the bilateral relations.
Okay, all right. Professor Aman Agrawal in the studio with me. Professor Aman Agrawal, let me now reverse it. Okay, so now we trust no one. We have to make it our own way and do our own things with whatever confluence of interest with whoever we can find it at that present moment. That can change 3 weeks later. So now let me ask you, obviously, if you are running an MSME export business selling textiles to America and you have been slapped with 50% tariffs as of 2 days ago, you are in trouble. Your entire business metrics are in trouble, your employees are in trouble, businesses are in trouble. China doesn't replace it because China produces textiles, they won't be buying the textiles off you. So what do we do with the industries that are actually going to experience trouble? That's not a China solution or a Japan solution. Where do you see a solution there?
You see, there are a couple of things here. Firstly, there will be rerouting of products which are going to United States directly from India through other zones where already some of these companies are exporting their products, where these tariffs have not been highly levied as levied on India. Secondly, I think for last 6 months it's already in the news, and industry has been knowing about the fact that these tariffs are expected to come in place both from the US perspective and from India perspective. So for an industrialist who is running his business, he knows there have been indications, and they would have made smart moves to go about reallocating their assets according to the markets and the demands which are coming forth, and seeing that if these are implemented, what will happen. Thirdly, what is important is that most of, except for textiles, but most of the other goods like gems and jewelries, masalas and others are inelastic demand products in a nature, more like cigarettes. You know, you impose taxes on cigarettes, certain couple of days you see reduction in consumption, then it goes back to the same consumption. Similar is the case with most of these products, including some of the high end textiles which are there. We should also keep in mind the fact that the American buyers who are buying these products cannot change their supply chains immediately overnight. So for them also to just think about moving it is not going to happen.
No, but does it make an impact? Does it? No. Because okay, I'm going to ask two separate questions. So does Bangladesh, Vietnam, China become cheaper?
No, they might become cheaper, because in any case 25% is a base tariff which is being put on almost all countries across the globe. So they may become cheaper, but the question is of the quality of product which is there and the level which we are engaging in.
Okay.
The low level of quality of products is not something which Indian textile is actually in competition in terms of export.
That market, the Bangladesh already have. They already have it. Yeah, they
Cambodia, all of them already have it.
Right.
We are in a very high-end luxury level, mid-level textile product. There, these countries are not a competition at all.
Okay,
and
so
that's why.
Okay, then let me rephrase the question.
Yeah.
If you are a US buyer, okay, and you're looking to source from India, at the very least, you are confused about the tariffs. Therefore, you are highly confused about your margins and where you will sell and how you will sell it, because these are all deals you have with retailers, etc., which are all of them are low margins. Nobody's working on high margins here.
Correct.
So at the very least, you have front loaded some purchases, and now you are deferring purchases. Even though you don't know where to go, you are hoping it gets sorted out. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's getting sorted out. Not in the next couple of weeks, because Donald Trump is now going to go to the Supreme Court. That's going to be a process that's going to go on for 2 months. So
you see, if I'm a smart buyer and a smart businessman, I would actually pre-book my orders not to create any supply chain disruptions coming forth, meaning thereby I will pre-book them, I will place them in order when the tariffs are not there, and automatically only align the trades coming in later. So, that will at least safeguard myself for next 6 months in terms of supplies coming forth, and I think most of these large buyers which are there in the United States would have done it, and they will also, in conjunction with the suppliers, if unless they are totally dependent on them, they will actually look at routes of which countries they can buy it from.
But there is a risk, and there are buyers out there who are just out of confusion because they don't know whether it's going to be 25%, 50, does it go back to 25, does it go back to 0, does it come to 10. That confusion causes hesitancy and delay as well. Everybody loses. The Americans also lose, and we also lose, and everybody across the world. So this is economics, ladies and gentlemen, is not a zero sum game that if there's one winner and one loser. The logic of capital free markets is that everybody wins or everybody loses, and the object of free trade is everybody wins or everybody loses. So everybody loses here. The Americans will have to pay a lot more and take losses, and we will take losses. And the global economy, which was going to be my next question, Mr. Agrawal. So, is there a global shock because of the chaos? Even though I know the GDP numbers seem to look okay, the stock market seem to be okay, global GDP numbers also seem to be okay, but is there an economic shock coming?
I'm happy you asked this question, given the GDP for the first quarter coming out to 7.8%. Given the inflation being around 2%, the effective rate is roughly about 5.8%, which is a very good rate in terms of growth for a country like India. Firstly, secondly, this is almost after 5 or 6 quarters that we are getting this kind of a response. Last year, the same quarter, we were roughly about 6 point some percent. Given the fact that there have been turbulences in the last 6-7 months, firstly, Trump scare, wars happening, India Pakistan also happened. The FIIs have been withdrawing money from the capital markets, FDIs have been, the flows had got reduced, oil price uncertainties have been happening. With all those factors in place in the last 6 months, if we have been able to attain a 7.8% GDP growth, I think, and also the other fact that Standard & Poor's has not only raised the ratings both on the long term as well as short term ratings from BBB minus to BBB and A3 to A2, clearly shows and outlines the robustness this economy has internally. The quarterly results are bullish. I think the fiscal prudence is being appreciated in the policy framework in terms of implementation.
It's looking,
so I think that is something which is
looking good, but when there is unpredictability and chaos.
I don't think so much of a risk need to be looked upon from the Trump or the American perspective. India's trade with them is fairly good, but please understand, large component of the trade is pharmaceutical with their no tariffs. Secondly, it's gems and jewelries again, which is again, as I said, it's a luxury good which people buy. Like when we are buying gold in India, irrespective of what price is there, people will buy. Next few months are all going to be seasons for festives and marriages.
Yes.
We're going to see both.
So
that way, we should not be worried about it.
So are we in crisis? No, but like I said, when it is unpredictable and chaotic, and you have to accept it is unpredictable and chaotic.
But business thrives on chaotic and unpredictability, uncertainty. That's how business make money.
All right.
So industrialists do make money out of it.
If you are clever, you can make money, but some people will lose money.
Certainly.
And there is, if the US economy through its own tariff logic falters, that's bad news for the world. Okay, there's no denying that. Okay. Let me get Ambassador Goyal back into this conversation. Ambassador Goyal, so now let's talk the balancing act. Okay. Difficult one. I wouldn't want to be sitting and trying to work out the PM schedule with Ambassador Jaishankar, because you have a problem with Donald Trump, but you don't have a problem with America. You have to make a deal with China because that trade is important to you because of your problems with Trump. But then you don't want to give a message to Japan that your problem with Trump now means that you have a problem with everybody related to the Quad. So you have to visit Japan also. You want to meet Xi Jinping, but you can't attend the military parade in Tiananmen because then Shahbaz and Kim Jong-un and the others will be there, and you don't want to be photographed with them for sure. You want to meet Putin because he is your friend and he has a better association with you than the Chinese, but then you also need to speak with Vladimir Zelensky because that's the expectation of you also. So it's been a complicated few days. How are we doing, sir?
I think we are doing pretty well, and as far as these conundrums are concerned, this is what diplomatic life is all about, having to make adjustments with different kinds of contradictory trends. I don't think the Japanese have not understood our predicament. I think the Japanese are quite clear that Quad, as they had thought about it, is imperiled really because of what Trump is doing. I think China knows very well what USA limitations are in terms of deals with China, and I'm quite certain that once USA has been able to secure their own interest in terms of the minerals, they will look at different other alternatives in terms of dealing with China. Uh, but the region which will have to, I think, fend for itself is Indo-Pacific. Uh, I am not quite certain whether Trump will have the same kind of priority for Indo-Pacific as Biden had. He has already clearly indicated the way he's dealing with Ukraine that, okay, USA will sell weapons to Ukraine and let NATO pay for it. He's looking at his interest. I think in the whole game, we need to see where we are. And there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. We are dealing with China. We know there are areas where we need to be very, very careful. And security is one of them. And I'm saying the whole security, not just border issues. Terrorism is one of them. China's support to Pakistan, despite what it does, is one of them. China supplying all kinds of weapons to Pakistan is one of them. So we will deal with it. I'm not quite certain
Yes.
that we are at a loss. Let us see how it plays out. And by the way, you said the parade.
Okay.
I think the parade is scheduled on the 3rd. We will not be there in any case.
I mean, he won't be there in any case, but there are others
Yes,
who have been
that's
invited
okay.
to stay on and are indeed staying on. So I think it's a cogent decision not to be there for the parade. Obviously, you don't want to be at a parade in Tiananmen Square celebrating the defeat of the Japanese after having met the Japanese. Yes, yes,
Rishabh, I
quickly,
want to add
quickly,
one
yeah.
thing
Please,
here.
please.
Sorry, just one more thing. Incidentally, India was part of the victory in China. Indian troops were there.
Yes.
And in Shanghai. And
Indian doctors
for-
were there. Yes.
Exactly. And for China not to
And I
acknowledge
know
that
we are talking
India can-
historically of a different world, but what
Exactly.
happened under the Japanese massacres that took place in Manchuria and other places, you can understand why the Chinese find it hard to forget. They were
Yes.
as bad as the Nazi ones during the Holocaust. So it's a different world now. The world has moved on, but yes, for the Chinese to say that they have to historically not forget, reasonable for them to do so. Okay, before I run out of time, I want to go back to Tianjin and Megha, but Professor Kondapalli, okay, so I just need your assessment. I've just given you all the conundrums as briefly as I can describe them. Okay, you have to balance the Japanese, but also talk to the Chinese. The Pakistanis are going to be friends with China, but then right now the Pakistanis' bigger friends are the Americans. You have Donald Trump, who you can't really deal with because he's just gone off the rails with everyone. So, maybe you just give him the Bharat Ratna and recommend him for the Nobel Peace Prize for his great work in Afghanistan. I don't know. You do something. So, you have to manage our economy. I think PM Modi's primary concern right now is that economic growth doesn't get stalled. The GST cuts have happened because of that. Okay, the trade deal with Japan is happening because of that. The FTA with the UK because of that. This meeting in China is for that, for nothing else. Okay, rest of it we'll have to figure it out. I just want your assessment. How are we doing?
I think it's pretty complex, as you mentioned. But in the case of China, China is not opening up the market to the Indian goods, as you mentioned about the trade deficits before. There has no progress in terms of the Indian exports to China being addressed by the Chinese. Also in terms of the manufacturing centers in India, not on a bigger scale as Xi Jinping promised in September 2014 when he visited New Delhi. So China-related matters would be in terms of the multipolarity aspect. But as you have mentioned, India-Japan, there is the Shinkansen high-speed railway deal that is in the offing, also in other infrastructure technological aspects. Even with the United States, we are dealing with the critical minerals related issue. So it is not completely a shutdown case as such. And we also have the defense related exercises, etc., going on with the United States. So I think it is quite complex. But as you mentioned, there is how India responds to each of these constituents in a different way, with focus on economic growth rates.
Yes, okay.
I agree with that position.
General Sudhakar, how are you doing, sir? I've just tried to briefly encapsulate the complexity of the unpredictable world we are currently in. We will have to pirouette and pivot on an hourly basis right now. But how are you doing? What's the overall picture? We seem to be doing okay. What's your thought?
India is navigating complex issues in a very effective and productive manner, I would say. Despite all challenges, we have been able to identify our requirement in the national interest. And that's a big thing to do. Problem identification and what is the requirement. That's a big thing in a complex geopolitical churn one is passing through. This is one part. Second part, I would say, we have been able to prioritize. This is the hallmark of political leadership. Today, as a little while back, we are talking about the border issue. Who better than Professor Kundabali to comment on? I'm still a student despite having served along the northern border. I still feel that willy-nilly, our dependency on China, not only India, all over the world, almost every country is so dependent on China, call it the supply chain or the basic rudimentary raw material. China is dominating in critical rare earth elements, 97%, 60% processing, 80% production, and upstream, midstream, downstream. Look at the kind of dominance it has all over the world. USA is nothing. And same USA used to lead in 61 elements out of 64 critical technology. It has gone down the drain now. 57 is being led by China. USA is leading only in 7. So I've just given you the example of technology. Talk about the economy. It is China consistently and persistently continues to maneuver a very progressive and dominating trade surplus in its favor against USA, as also a good number of countries in the world. It's dominating the economy. So therefore, what actually brings me is that there will be a lot of prudence if we think practically and calibrate our negotiation with China in a manner that we don't compromise the national security, go in for selective cooperation, because without the support of China today, we cannot achieve the target of 30 trillion.
Yeah, well, the Americans know that also, and despite give credit to the Chinese, they've done what they have. Do I trust them from tomorrow morning? The answer is no. But then, do I trust what's coming out of the White House? The answer is also no. So here it is. So let me use this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you an assessment. So the assessment here seems to be that this has gone off okay. It has served the purpose. The balancing and the pirouettes, go to Japan, speak to Zelensky in the morning, meet Putin the next morning, meet Xi. This is what you say, this is what you don't say. Economically, GST cut, trade deals, FTAs, they don't solve the problem for every MSME who's going to be hit. Okay. Is it going to be an across the board hit? Is it going to spill over into the larger Indian economy and start affecting our GDP growth? I can't say for certain, but it looks okay. We are having to manage it on a day by day situation because the global situation is unpredictable. We thought the EU-US deal with Trump was over. But yesterday we were told no, it's not, because Trump has threatened more tariffs and they've threatened counter tariffs. So the assessment is we're doing okay. This has served the purpose it has done with a reasonable balance. PM is not attending the Tiananmen Square military parade. He's gone to Japan right before this. He's spoken with Zelensky in the morning and he meets Putin tomorrow. That's as non-aligned in between the route as you can possibly get. With Trump, if it's become personal, that's on him. If all that matters to him is his Nobel Prize, take it. Take the Bharat Ratna. Wish you the best. Build 3 more golf courses in Navi Mumbai and Gurugram. We'll all show up for a round. If that's what it takes to stabilize things, so be it. And I don't say that with sarcasm. If that's what it takes, it takes. It's no loss to anyone. If it solves the problem, it solves the problem. Fair enough. In principle, if you invite a Pakistani military chief to dinner with you, in principle, if you don't understand that when people who are on a picnic with their families are shot in the head, every country should answer, we will smoke them out and you are either with us or against us. It is what it is.